welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Patrick.
I'm Fritz.
And we are back after hiatus with this week's Pulp Picks reading recommendations on New Comic Book Day. And we decided since we were off for 2 weeks, turns out that we have personal lives, not much, but we do have a bit of a personal life each. We decided to do kind of all of the last 3 weeks for our picks to get people caught up. So with that being said, welcome back. And what have you got for us this morning?
Yeah, so my pick this week is Void Rivals 13, the start of the new arc here. And if you can tell by the cover, we've got Pythona and the members of Cobra Law are coming to check out, like, hey, we've been finding all this like weird space stuff. We should go into space and figure out what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they seem to have an axe to grind because technology is the antithesis of their whole way of life.
Yeah, like I love kind of, because I remember when the first issue of the Cobra Commander miniseries dropped and it was like a big thing, just like, oh, they're just doing like Cobra Law like right away, like that, because like my understanding is has like a sort of a controversial place in like a lot of like Joe stuff because it's
G.I. Joe the movie was not super well received.
Yeah, so like just like going for something like that right away, but like it makes sense in the context of like, oh yeah, they're this like everything they do is like this kind of like they don't really do like modern technologies. We understand it's all kind of like running organic things.
Yes,
and
bioorganic technology.
Yeah, so of course they'd see stuff like the Cybertronians and be like, oh, that's like an unholy monstrosity. We need to get rid of that.
Correct.
So,
and I will say, like, I think that a lot of people really liked some of the concepts that came out of Cobra Law, but the movie itself is just kind of weird. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that being said.
Yeah, but yeah, so they've gone to space to try and figure out like what's all happening out there that's causing all this trouble to come to Earth, and have unwittingly set themselves up on a collision course with the main cast of Void Rivals, which after the last arc has been split up. We've got one of them is trying to go like deeper into the plan, figure out like, hey, what's like going on? Why are people connected to Energon? Like, who is like Zerta Trion? Then the other one is going off to be like going back to his side to be like, hey, turns out all this stuff has been happening that like no one knows about. We should probably do something about that.
Right, yeah. The leaders of our two warring societies have actually been colluding with each other to keep us warring.
Yeah, and like trying to figure out like why that is. And like the end of this issue kind of like start like we're definitely coming up on the reveal. And like we were talking about before, like we're pretty sure like we can figure out what it is, but that it I don't know. I know some people hate when like, oh, I can tell like what the reveal of like a mystery or something is before it happens. Just like I don't know, that to me never has like really been like a problem for stuff. Like as long as it's like the fact that you can like look at like all the clues and like figure it out, that just tells me that like you're actually like paying attention.
Correct.
So
yeah.
like I don't see it as an issue.
That's way better than somebody putting a twist in and then the twist is like, well, that's so convoluted on purpose so that nobody would get it that it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, and it's not even, and it's also not like so simple that like it's not like the bit from I don't know how much of our audience is going to get this reference, but A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, where there's the character named Red Herring, where like the whole bit is just like, yeah, of course it's not them. Like it's like yeah. But no, like this arc, we get Skuxoid gets to show up again for a bit. Like I've loved his little mini arc of just being like, maybe I don't want to like live my life the way I've been living it forever now. Like,
I'm still down with Seth Rogen voicing him in the animated version of this.
Absolutely. Springer continues to be an enjoyable addition to the cast. We know from some of the solicits coming up that a certain other someone from the movie is going to be showing up at some point.
Yes.
Don't want to spoil that for anyone who might not know, but I'm definitely excited to see them.
It's going to be super cool. I'm really I know that, so we were talking about, we've had some people drop this one in particular, you know, Transformers, G.I. Joe, keep plugging along. But I think because it kind of, it's a slower burn. It's fewer characters that people are familiar with. And it seems, you know, it's on the other side of the galaxy, so it's a little more disconnected. But like you say, if you've been paying attention, you can see all these connecting sinew that's about to pull all three of these books together, or all three of these portions of the Energon universe,
Yeah.
I guess, because G.I. Joe hasn't started quite yet, but it's
It-
coming soon.
2
Sign
weeks. Sign up.
up.
Well, like, because I love the little things here, like the way that, like, how these two groups are going to intersect is because Python and her people, they follow Jetfire's Energon signature to, like, the planet where he was found in issue 1. Like, they,
Right.
like, everything is really starting to dovetail in a
Yes.
way that, like, I would not be surprised if one of the big announcements next year is like, hey, we're doing a big crossover thing. Like,
Yeah, so that kind of begs the question, how far out do you think Robert Kirkman and crew had their kind of draft of, you know, the basic structure of how everything was going to work? It's feeling like at least 2 years?
well, because, like,
3 years?
which makes
maybe?
sense because I know Johnson, spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't maybe seen this, has said that, like, he's, like, going to be done by, like, issue, like, 24 in Transformers. So,
Yeah.
like, it definitely seems like, yeah, like, the first, like, 2 years have been, like, fairly well, like, plotted out, like, in terms of, like, how things are going to build on top of each other.
Yeah, and that's just smart, I think. You know, when they jump in with just kind of a kernel of an idea and then they just kind of spitball from there,
Yeah.
sometimes it works and sometimes it really doesn't. But yeah, the whole Energon universe, highly recommend on the show a lot. Yeah, excellent issue again, and the art was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
As always.
Speaking of something with just absolutely fantastic art and something that's actually the opposite end of, like, you really don't need to have had to read too many other things to really get what's going on here.
No, yeah, absolutely. So I went with Batman and Robin Year 1, Number 1, and this is a reunion of creative team of Mark Waid and Chris Samnee. And if you're not familiar, they did a run on Daredevil for Marvel. They did a run on Captain America for Marvel.
Black
they
Widow.
did a run on Black Widow. And then Samnee has been doing a lot of covers for which one? Not World's Finest?
The Teen Titans.
The
World's
Teen
Finest.
Titans
Yeah,
World
and
Finest,
just
yeah.
a bunch of other covers for DC besides.
Yeah, and was previously working with Robert Kirkman on Firepower.
Yeah.
So good to see Chris Samnee, who is one of my absolute favorite current artists in comic books, over at DC, where I think his style wasn't great on all the Marvel books that he did, but it particularly works well on DC characters. And Batman and Robin are a prime example of it. And we get to see, the basic premise is right there in the title. It's Robin, Dick Grayson has just been orphaned. Bruce Wayne has just brought him on as his ward. And at the very beginning of the book, he and Alfred are having a discussion about, you're getting him ready to go out and fight crime with you. Like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. That's Alfred's take, because of course Alfred's the
reasonable one.
The reasonable one in the room. And Bruce is like, yeah, but one way or the other, he's going to go out and do something reckless. He might as well have somebody,
Yeah, who knows what they're doing with him.
to mentor him and keep an eye on him and keep him safe. So right off the bat, they address the most problematic thing about Batman and Robin, and it's an adult is putting a child literally into harm's way with murderers and killers and stuff. So, all right, well, it's just a comic book, so we got that out of the way. Now let's see what happens. And, they do a really good job of balancing, like, it goes pretty well because, Dick Grayson is well suited for this line of work, but at the same time he's a teenager, so it doesn't go perfectly. We get to see a classic Batman villain. We also get to see the villain who is going to be kind of the center of this arc introduced.
Yeah, we don't get a whole lot of them, but what we do get is just like, oh yeah, this person's a little scary, that's for sure.
Definitely a very creepy panel.
Yeah.
That made you feel uncomfortable for everybody involved. And just the way that Samnee does shadowing just lends so perfectly to Gotham at night.
I mean, you can even just see it on the cover here, like the heavy use of blacks is just like, it sets the mood like instantly.
Which is great because it's such a contrast to his ability to also do cartoony faces isn't quite right, but like softer, fun faces. Like Robin's joy is so evident.
I know I frequently like compare stuff to Alex Toth, just in terms of like being able to like basically strip down everything that's not essential and just like leave like everything you need to know and just like the most like simple detail possible.
Yep, Darwin Cook. I know that I compare him to Darwin Cook a lot.
Yep.
And for me, one of the all-time great DC artists, gone too soon. Who knows? He might have been. I don't know what kind of a human being he was. So that
sounds like he was a nice guy.
Sounds like he was a nice guy. He might have clubbed baby seals in his spare time. I don't know. But
this is the wrong time of year to besmirch the dead. We got like tomorrow.
Right?
Tomorrow is we're just
All Hallows Eve.
Go get haunted by the ghost.
Hey, if I get haunted by the ghost of Darwin Cook, I am A-okay with that, Can he, phantasmically hold a pen? That's what I want to know. But anyway, it's fantastic. Like you said at the beginning, you don't really need to know much other than what the general public knows about Batman and Robin to be able to pick up this book and start reading it. Current continuity, you need to know nothing. You just need to know about the basics of Batman, Robin, Alfred, and, that they fight crime, Commissioner Gordon, which literally everybody knows. So it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Speaking of a team that has been putting out gorgeous work,
including it being about a Cape Crusader and being a number one about a Cape Crusader, it's Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu #1, most recent relaunch for our boy Mark here. So, like we said, this is an issue 1. It's very much dedicated to kind of like getting like new readers up to speed on stuff like they're. Because, I mean, that's the thing when you've got, like, a new #1 for a recent series. It's just like, hey, people who haven't been reading are going to be, like, checking this out. We should make sure that, like, we're not, like, just throwing them to the deep end of the pool.
Right.
So this issue mainly intercuts between Mark doing his thing, which is making a lot of people very bloody, and a couple of detectives and former detectives kind of, like, going over stuff about Moon Knight, like, who are his known like accomplices, like what's he up to recently? His kind of like a general history, just like a real nice way to be like, oh hey, if you want to know like who's going to be important in this book, here's who.
Right. Yeah, and so that being said, it's not. Sometimes when you get a new #1, it's like it's a new direction. No, this is a direct continuation of what people have been buying and loving from Moon Knight because it's the same creative team. They're not resetting anything. It's just kind of after Blood Hunt. This is where, and Mark being resurrected, this is kind of the next phase, I guess, the next big bad guy. Phase. Yeah, right, phases, so we get introduced to who the bad guy is, and we get kind of a glimpse into both why Mark is going to confront this person, and then also just like how deep his connections, the bad guy's connections go. And you're not sure at the end of this issue, like, is Mark in way over his head on this?
Yeah, things might be more complicated for him than he realizes.
Yeah, if he's taking things at face value, then this is going to get ugly for Mark and his team very quickly.
Yeah, but no, I mean, like, this run, like, if you have been reading it, has basically everything you've been enjoying about it. We were talking about this beforehand, because, so, like, the artist on here, Capuccio, so much of what has made this series great has been their art style. Again, like, similar to Tommy in terms of just, like, the way they, like, cover everything in shadow in a way that just, like, instantly sets the mood for you.
Yeah, there was a scene where a character basically, like, whips out a sword and points it at Mark's throat. And I stared at that panel because I was like, the dynamic energy that was caught in that, but then I was also like, man, is the sword in the arm too long? Because it felt almost 3D-like with how much of an extension of their arm it was and everything. And I stared at it and I was like, no, the proportions are all right there. It's just kind of, it was set up in such a way to really be that dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, it really felt like you were at the point of a sword. Yeah, it's I just love it. And we do know that Capuccio is moving on to another book. We were talking about that ahead of time.
Yeah, the recently announced, a couple weeks ago at New York Comic Con, Ultimate Wolverine, going to be the new title for the Ultimates coming out in January. The solicits for the Marvel January stuff just dropped, so you can check out some of the stuff they've shown off for that.
It's featured prominently on the cover there, and Wolverine is the Winter Soldier. So interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be Fuccio and Chris Condon's going to be running it. They're taking over on Green Arrow. And speaking of other recent books that we missed, like they did the kind of like the backup story in this like last issue of Williamson's run on Arrow.
Yeah.
And like it's like, they've got a good feel for it. Like they've got Arrow is like the right amount of just like cocky kind of jerk, but still like a superhero.
I really liked Green Arrow. I know we had a couple customers that were like, it was in such a groove. It kind of stunk that, he was pulled into absolute power in the way that he did, because it kind of slowed down that story. But we're beyond that now.
Yeah. No, I'm very excited to see where they go with that. Just a little side tangent. But.
Yeah. Well, there's been a ton of good stuff over the last, well, this is now the third Wednesday.
And there's some good stuff this week, like stuff from this week that probably would have made it up here. The new arc of Feral just started. Things are about as dire as you could think they'd be for a bunch of animals stuck in the woods during like a super rabies outbreak.
Oh yeah.
And the way this issue ends is just like, on the one hand, it's like, oh, they might have caught a break, but also being a horror thing, just like, oh, this is going to get worse at some point.
Right.
And then Ultimate X-Men continues to just be absolutely fantastic. They're doing a lot more. Some of the like side characters get moments of shine in this issue that are just super cool. We're getting to learn about them a bit more, and things are definitely heating up with people finding out more and more about like the mutants and the children of the Atom cult.
Yeah. Speaking of mutants, going back a little further, Uncanny X-Men just continues to be an awesome book. Just awesome. I love the way that Rogue is kind of the linchpin of the whole thing. But these new characters that they've introduced are super cool, and in the next issue we're going to get to see them throw down a little bit. This issue kind of threw you a curveball about the whole warden at the Xavier's former mansion, who's got him captive and whatever. It's like, wait, what is actually going on there? Are they not just straight up evil mutant haters that are working for the government or whatever? It got really interesting. And then Sarah, like, whoa, what a backstory got darker, and what a terrifying creature.
Continues the trend of just like, don't let Charles Xavier into your life.
Apparently not.
Good things do not come with that.
No, definitely don't date him.
Oh yeah, no, like that, like just dating him is the most like red flag thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. I liked Iron Man #1. We'll see where they go with this, but I really liked the setup. Other group of people trying to take over Stark Industries, like, so we're kind of, it's been kind of the theme, I guess, since Extremis. That's kind of been just kind of the ongoing theme. So what are we on, 20 years now? But I mean, it does make, even further than that, because going back to the Armor Wars,
which there's a
this
great
one
callback to that.
And the way that character popped up, and then their armor reveal was really cool.
Nightwing, the new run on that from Dan Waters and Dexter Soy's off to a fun start. I've always been a fan of basically Dan Waters is just one of those people where, like, if he's writing something, I feel like I have to check it out regardless of what it is. Yeah. And I love the start of this arc. It's like, it's clearly building off the stuff from Taylor's run, but like in a way where like you don't need to be super familiar with it. It kind of gets it out to be like, oh, like there's a vacuum of power with all like the different like criminal elements in Bloodhaven.
Sure.
Like, and things are definitely not going the way that Nightwing would hope they would go with it. Like he's trying to like get a hold on things in like a very unique way that like he even mentions like, I don't know if Batman would approve of what I'm doing, but this is my city, so I don't care.
I like it. Harkens back to, Batman and Robin Year One. The end of Zatanna Bring Down the House was great too. So if you weren't reading that, the trade paperback should be coming out in like a month or two.
I would think so, yeah.
Yeah, I highly recommend. It was really good. I felt like the conclusion was well done. We get a fun cameos in the very end of it, which also looked super cool. The art on that was just awesome.
Speaking of that, other things revealed at New York Comic Con.
Yes.
Probably like I think I posted about this when it came out. Like easily going to be the book I'm looking forward to most next year is for the new DC Absolute titles. They announced Absolute Martian Manhunter.
Yes.
By Dennis Camp, currently writing the Ultimates, new issue out next week.
Yeah.
And art by Javier Rodriguez, artist of Satanic Mayhem House.
That'll be a really good fit.
Oh yeah, no, like as soon as I saw that, it's just like, oh, like the only other thing that they announced that might like be contender for favorite book of next year is they did also announce a new a sequel series of Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees.
Ooh.
Which I don't know what they could do for a sequel to that, but like give me more.
Well, I mean, Dexter had a bunch of seasons, so I guess, it is so unreal that we are rolling up on the end of 2024.
Oh, yeah.
And moving into 2025 here. But it looks like there's lots of good stuff on the horizon.
Oh, yeah. No, like like a lot of people have good stuff to show off there. And obviously it's only the tip of the iceberg since it's only stuff coming out in the first couple months next year.
Crazy. Well, if you haven't been in recently, stop on into the store. As you're watching, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, do all of that kind of stuff. Check out our website. The Comic Hub store and app allows you to be able to order stuff. If anything that we've been talking about sounds good to you, you can just buy it right through that if you've got your account set up. And
for instance, it would have been up here if we had a copy, but
right.
Absolute Wonder Woman was absolutely fantastic. I loved everything about it. Hayden Sherman was the standout. Their art was just absolutely beautiful. We sold out like within like the day, same as with Absolute Batman.
Yeah.
Absolute Superman is next week. So if you want a copy of that, make sure you get signed up. Same thing for these other books. Like they're going to be going quick. They also go back to New York. They showed off some stuff for Absolute Flash and Green Lantern coming next year. Ooh. So keep your eyes peeled for those when they get solicited.
It sounds like they're building towards an Absolute Justice League.
A little bit, yeah.
That they've got out there. Also, Absolute Batman #1, the second printings are gone already too, we believe. Gone at the distributor. Like, we couldn't even get a hold of them.
Yeah, but there are third printings already, I think.
They haven't been on cutoff yet, but there is a noir version, which is just,
which I might
black
get
and white version.
Because, like, when they originally, like, some of the stuff for it leaked, like, it was the black and white version. Just
we got that ash can, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, because I absolutely adore the colors they use, but it's also just like, man, I kind of want to see what this looks like in black and white.
It's going to be super
cool.
Oh,
yeah.
So we've got a number of copies of the noir version coming out. So that's a different printing instead of an additional printing.
Yeah.
So, if that's kind of your jam, is you don't like second and thirds, well, that's an option to be able to get a different printing of it without paying the crazy prices online right now. Because it sold out everywhere.
Oh,
it wasn't just here, it was everywhere. And we still, yesterday, we had somebody coming in asking, more than one person, can I get a first print of Absolute Batman #1? And it's like, no, not unless you have a time machine, dude.
No.
But, that also, it helps us a lot when people subscribe ahead of time because both of those books people slept on until the absolute last minute. And then I know that we, didn't have the inventory to be able to meet demand. And we'd love to do that. But we also...
Well, we got to know. You got to let us know that
you got to let us know. Help us, help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, we will be back next week with more picks. And until then, enjoy the reading. Hello and welcome to another edition of Pulp Picks. My name is Eddie Pulp, and this is my sidekick, Rusty Staples.
What do you want me to do with this?